Hello there everybody, and welcome to this, the very first webinar of 2026 from the Curious Piano Teachers. A big welcome to you all. My name is Dr. Sally Cathcart and I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm joined by the delightful Sharon Mark-Taggart. Hello Sharon!
Hello Sally, it is lovely to be live with you this lunchtime here in the UK. It mightn't be lunchtime, depending on whereabouts all of our lovely attendees are listening from. Not so sure who is the furthest away today.
Shall we see if we can find out then? Hello everybody, this is a webinar, but you can chat to us. We'd love to know where you are joining us from as a starting point. While we, maybe just for those of you who haven't met us before, we thought we'd just introduce ourselves a little bit more. Sharon, do you want to go first on this one?
Yes, of course. So we are together the co-founders and directors of the Curious Piano Teachers. The Curious Piano Teachers last May, so May of 2025, we celebrated our 10th birthday. So officially 10 years of helping, supporting, bringing together and training piano teachers right across the world. Using what we do is all very practical, it's all very research based, and as our members have been telling us for the past 10 years, it is very liberating and freeing when they develop reflective practices and when they come together, because of course for decades this has been probably one of the loneliest professions. So it's all about bringing people together, from including people, I'm just looking here, we have someone listening in from Hong Kong, Sussex, Scotland, Isle of Wight. So yeah, this is what we do, bringing people, piano teachers from all across the world together to a shared space, and where Sally and I today are excited to be sharing about unlocking notation strategies and tips.
Because we are curious piano teachers after all, and one of the things we say is we learn as much as we teach, and I think that's what sort of brought Sharon and I together initially, is this real thirst for how can we do piano teaching differently, how can we improve what we give to our students. So it's less about us, it's actually about what do our students get. How can we create teaching that is fit, basically, for the 21st century? Because I've done a lot of research, we are very Victorian in our ways sometimes, okay? And we're trying to shift away from that very worthwhile traditional approach, keep the best bits, but now let's look at how we teach notation, and it's a subject that's been dear to my heart for many, many years. And we were wondering whether you can remember how you learnt to read. We'd love you to share in those comments if you can remember how you learnt to read. Can you remember, Sharon?
I can remember. My very early lessons were pretty ad hoc. I had lessons with an elderly great aunt, was how I started. I remember using mnemonics, and I remember thinking, oh, how difficult it is to read music. And I got to quite an advanced level, and my rhythm reading in particular was very shaky and very, very poor. One of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I did not have a very good experience. It was kind of my mom keeping me in there doing it and kind of getting along. I was doing, as in the UK you do, the graded exam system, but I did not have any real deep understanding of how to read music. It was all a bit mucky and messy as you go along. Certainly compared to the way, for example, that we advocate research-based at the Curious Piano Teachers, where a big word is systematic, being very systematic in how we do things so that we're getting predictable results. And it's not just for those children who are slightly more switched on, and who get it and who are successful with it. So, yeah, lots of lovely comments coming in here.
Indeed. I don't think I can really remember, but obviously, but my mum could read the music a little bit, so I suspect she probably helped me. I do remember I had a big shock when I started to teach the piano. I just finished college and did some piano teaching, and I can remember very clearly the room and the student, and it was in South London in Camberwell, you know, and I had this student with a tutor book, and I had this kind of, she had a blank look on her face when I was talking about the note names, and I suddenly realised she doesn't speak my language. And that was, oh, how do we do this then? But I think for me, my big adventure into this area started when a few years later I was teaching at a higher level. I was teaching more grade 6 to 8 students and some diploma students. But they all seemed to have technical problems. They all were really, really tense in their playing. And that meant that everything here was really stiff, despite the fact they were grade 6, you know, and there was really not a very nice sound coming from the piano. And this seemed to be a pattern. And I can remember thinking about this, reflecting on it, but long before I started any research. And I started to reflect on it. And after a couple of years, I realised they can't hear the music that they're going to play in their head. So they were going directly from what they saw to their hands without it passing through their body or their brain at all. And so there was this continuous battle for them. What is that note? What is that chord? Yeah. And it was literally all jabby and like that. And that's what made me curious about this. Well, how can we do this better? And at that point, because this was at secondary school level and I'd only taught at secondary school level at that point, and I thought, actually, you know, why can't we teach them better at the beginning level, back in the primary sector? Why can't we get it right from the start? And that's been an ongoing theme. You know, let's get it right at the start, so these tensions and these physical problems, and often leading to people giving up, so this just doesn't happen. So that was kind of what started me on this, and it was this lack of oral engagement that was a real problem. And I know, you know, you and I have talked about this many times, haven't we? And the necessity of sound and stuff like that.
I remember you doing the sound before symbol talk. That's actually where I met Sally at the University of Reading back in something like 2003, 2002. And one of the things, and you may be feeling this on the call today, was sound before symbol. First of all, what is that? And secondly, when I understand it's all about this very strong auditory development in the first instance, moving to the symbol. How do you do that? Even how do you do that in a piano lesson? And so I do remember how scary and how completely alien it felt. So if you are one of these people on the call today, what I will say is it does take time. You do need to have some sort of a system in place to start to edge towards teaching your students how to read notation, whether it's pitch reading, rhythm reading more effectively. And of course, last year Sally created a course that walks through the steps. But it can definitely feel very scary at the beginning.
Yeah. So let me tell you a little bit about sort of some of the research into this area, and I'm just going to share some slides that I discovered I'd made. It's always exciting when you discover them. And as part, let's get the ear, there we go. Thank you very much, continue to share. I went ahead and I did an MA, my curiosity. I'm saying that my sharing is paused. I don't know whether you could see that okay, could you?
It's okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can.
okay, that's all right then. Um, right, here we go then. Right, no, it doesn't want to know. It's gone now. Stop share. Oh
We had
no.
it just a moment ago.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to go back. So my MA ended up looking at this problem of tension in our pianist and why it didn't happen. And I ended up with three conclusions that, well, no, more than three conclusions, but the ear has to be at the heart of all music making. The ear has to be at the heart of all music making. And then one that when I looked at instrumental lessons, sorry, I'm not doing very well here at all. We're thinking Zoom is doing funny things these days. Um, yeah, so I'm just going to give up on that one because it's probably not worth it. So the ear has to be at the heart, and one of the ways that we can really help to balance it up with notation, which is also important, is by using things like improvisation and internalization, audiation, and also memorization. But the ear goes to the gesture. The ear must go to the gesture from the body. That's the next thing really that needs to happen. And then, sort of parallel to that, we have the ear or the eye hearing what it sees. So the eye to the ear. And then eventually we have all three things coming together. Yeah. In that what you see, you hear, you play. And then the fluency, the flow, it just all just clicks into place. That's not to say it's necessarily just an easy process to do, but it is a process that really, really does work. It takes time, it takes that persistency, it takes that consistency, and it takes a strategic approach. And I think what we're going to do today is show you some of the strategies and some of the starting points that you can use with some of your students. Notation is a huge topic. Unlocking notation is a huge topic. Notice that it's called unlocking notation. All students are capable of reading notation to a greater or lesser extent. You don't say to a child who isn't very good at reading, for example, they can't read. You know, there are different degrees of fluency with reading and there are different kind of comfort levels. Some people use their ears more, some people use their eyes more. But all children, and we have to believe this as teachers, we have to, this is the starting point really, you have to believe that all students are capable of learning to read notation if you produce it, if you introduce it in really musically meaningful ways. And at this point, I'm going to hand over to Sharon, who's going to be sharing some lesson extracts with her delightful young student to show us just how important singing is. Singing is the starting point, really. Sharon, over to you.
Yes, thank you so much. So I am going to start with this. I do apologize for the quality of the recording I did here, but you will get the idea. So I'm just going to bring that. Sally, can you verify that everyone can see that full screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a lovely little student of mine. Her name is Rosa. She has been coming to me for just over a year now. And in the first year, we did a huge amount of playing the piano and playing the piano by rote, developing singing, developing rhythm through whole movement, body. And so we have kind of, towards the end of that summer term, then we were, that was as in last summer, we were starting to develop a little bit more in terms of the reading. And what I want to show here is where, at this point, she is, she's reading steps and skips. Okay, I have not used a mnemonic approach. Steps and skips, so obviously starting with steps, moving from a line to a space, to a line, to a space. The resource that I use is I'm sure many of you are aware of the Piano Safari flashcards. So this is something that Rosa has, and this is a resource that we've been using. So again, I know many of you on the call are familiar, but for those who are not, these are the Piano Safari level 1 reading cards that Rosa has been using. One reason I really like them is they separate out pitch and rhythm. Okay, you've got, and I'm just going to mention it. So at the bottom here, you have just some rhythm reading. I cannot stress strongly enough how important it is that we do pull out rhythm and teach rhythm separately. Now, what you're going to see here is quite focused on pitch. And how do I begin? Okay, so I'm beginning with a song. I'm going to show you how I'm teaching that song, and then how we move it to where she is playing it using bells. Okay, these amazing little handbells that you just do this to play. The other reason I like it is when they are playing, you can be developing that lovely, soft, flexible wrist at the same time. So, and then she comes to the point of writing it. So I do have some videos that are a little bit clearer, but I'm going to start here so that you get an idea of the song. So here we go.
We've lost the sound there, Sharon.
Completely? Or just when
Yeah.
I'm muted?
When you muted.
Okay, I'm aware the sound is possibly not coming through very clearly. Is it, Sally?
No, it's very quiet.
Okay,
It's
so
difficult
let me
to hear.
just talk through a little bit. So we have got bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring. Another important thing to do is, and again we have been developing it, is getting students to sing back by themselves. It's really important. It's very easy to kind of be singing with them all the time. It's really important that we step back. Now, obviously this is 10 minutes into the lesson. We have done other things. So I'm going to just move on a little bit further. I think somewhere to around here. And my focus at this stage is getting her to hum. So what I've just done there is using our humming voice, taking away the words can help students focus. And I want you to listen to the next little step. If we can't hear it very clearly, I will just reiterate what I'm doing. Do you think the notes stay the same, as in do we play on the same level, or will we play at different levels? Have a listen. So the question there was, again, a very direct question. When I hum these three sounds, Are they the same or are they different? So I'm humming. Sally, sometimes I know you will sing to na na na. So sometimes we can use different syllables that sometimes make the sound that little bit clearer. And asking that student, did the sound, did it change or did it stay the same? A little bit further on, I'm just going to stop my share for a second. A little bit further on, when she then has played that on the bells, then I will go and I'm going to do another 2 sounds. Na, 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 na. And then finding out, do you think that is still on the same sound or is it different? So what I was leading her to do was being able to play on the bells and figure them out. Sally.
Yeah. It's a very, very step-by-step process, isn't it, Sharon? That
It is.
And as soon as you miss a step out, you kind of know, because all of a sudden their faces will go blank and you sort of think, And you might think, well, do they really need this broken down? And in my experience, yes, they do. They do need it broken down. So what we're trying to do, singing is the most direct musical experience we have. Yeah, you cannot replace it. Doesn't matter what instrument you play. Actually, what we're doing is we're singing at our instrument. We're singing at the piano. But to sing, the music comes through you. The piano is not a musical instrument in that it can't play music on its own. The music comes out of you. So if you don't have the music inside, then you have a problem. So what you're doing there, Sharon, is developing the scaffolding, aren't you? And like any scaffolding, it takes time to erect. And the more, and I'm sure, I've never been a scaffolder myself, but just thinking about that, the more experienced you get at putting the scaffolding up, the quicker you'll be able to go, and the more skilled you'll be at putting the next little bit in place for your student. So to start with, you probably get, it'll be a bit higgledy-piggledy. I look back at my years of teaching notation and think, yeah, don't you, Sharon?
Absolutely.
However, we all do our best, and I do say to everybody who's listening here, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Just stay open and stay curious to new ideas, and take one idea maybe from this workshop and try it out. And try it out with more than one student. We are not just talking beginners. We are talking all levels of students. We should be singing.
And I can see there's a question has come in from Jenny. How can you encourage pupils who refuse to sing and to hum?
I'm just going to go and get Lulu. Hang on a minute. She's just a bit shy behind the piano. Yeah. Sharon, over to you while I get Lulu.
Well, there will be a prop coming in just a moment, which can help. What I would say is, for me, going back kind of all those kind of couple of decades ago when I started teaching, I was very uncomfortable with my singing voice and it just sounding as in without any sort of piano accompaniment alongside, playing alongside the melody, just singing. So actually that singing, bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring, was not me as a piano teacher in my comfort zone at all. And developing my own confidence of doing that was, I find, for me, that was one of my biggest barriers. Sometimes students will be reluctant, and coming back to something that we say at the Curious Piano Teachers, being consistent, being persistent, and doing it little by little. Sometimes they will whistle. I can't whistle. Sometimes they will hum, and of course sometimes they will hum through, depending on the age. No. Sally, introduce us, please.
Well, this is the lovely Lulu, aren't you? Yes.
Or Lulu.
Lulu, this is. Okay. So you're going to sing hello to everybody? Yes, okay. Na, 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 na. Now the trouble with Lulu is she doesn't know the words. Okay, she can only sing na, and therefore she will encourage students, and young students cannot resist singing to a puppet. If they won't sing to you, get a puppet. This Lulu is an entrancing puppet, and she transports me, certainly. But also, any other puppets you get a sock puppet. I've got a little owl here, and he goes flying around to help people, children, move their voices around, because just finding their voice can be a struggle.
And appropriately, we have had, Esther has come in and says, if a pupil struggles with getting the pitch, what can we do to help them reach it?
Okay, you go swooping up and down, okay? You get them moving their voice. So, would you like to follow me? Who shall I use? I think I'll use the owl today. I'm talking probably 8 and under, really, for this. So they're going to go and sit on top of the computer, for example, or on top of the piano, okay? Now he's going to go and fly around a bit. And can you hear the voice is moving around? We have to get that. The other things you can do, okay, let's go on a little journey, shall we? So I'd like you all to stand up. Can you all stand up? Okay, and we are going to do a little story, and we're going to go, we're astronauts, okay? We're going to the moon. So the first thing we have to do is put on our spacesuit. So you have to be, and you have to pretend, you have to be prepared to be a bit silly, okay? That's part of the fun. So you put on your spacesuit and you just make lots of noises. Okay, get your breathing going, okay? You've got your helmet on. And you practice your breathing in and out, okay? And blah, 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 into the lift, down to the lift. And you're sitting in the spacecraft. And you can guess, can't you, what's going to come next? So the spacecraft is about to take off. Wow! And they need help finding their singing voices. Very little singing is happening in schools these days. Yeah, very little. You might have heard and seen there's a new campaign going on, a choir in every school. It's been on the BBC News quite a lot in the last month or so, because singing matters. Singing matters for all sorts of reasons. So that's hopefully some ideas. I do think props are wonderful. Can I also tell you a story about Elsie, who is a current student? She's now 15. She would not sing when she was young. She went through all the songs, I sang. She didn't. She was very shy. She's now having singing lessons and doing splendidly at it. So even if they won't sing, sing with you, sing, and just keep encouraging them. Yeah. Oh, I always say, I seem to be doing a Sally solo, and we both laugh.
Yes.
Sorry,
I think as well, sometimes we get them to pitch match the sound of the piano or the sound of the bell. And of course, when without this, we just use our voice. So pitch matching is another whole thing. And other than that, then getting them to create a sound, again, just an imaginary something. I don't know, the owl is plopping along on something, bum, 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 bum. And that's, of course, you've got a pitch there to work with. Interestingly, in the lesson that you have seen a little bit of, I was going to use an F and an A and a C. I'm going to come in a moment and just show you a little bit of how we then lead up from her singing it to playing it on the bells. I'm going to show you then the next stage, which is where she is notating it. But it was really interesting. I had picked FAC because I kind of thought on my floor stave, I am going to, okay. Let's get her to notate it. G stave, G clef. It's going to be first space, second space, third space, FAC. And of course, she couldn't reach the high C. So in the middle of that lesson, I had to run in and I had to grab cocktail sticks because I realized I needed to go with a C. Dum, bum, bum, a C, E, G set of bells, because then she didn't have an issue singing it. So you're always just adapting and figuring out, because whereas she just wasn't reaching the high C, it was okay, of course, yes, there was me planning for the notation. But what we then had to do was, okay, so what I have here is a little pile of plasticine or Play-Doh balls. All right. Sally, shall I go and show
Yeah.
the next
Yeah.
video at this point?
Yeah. I'm just going to share, while you get that ready, I'm just going to share, because I do have a YouTube channel called Ready to Play, and there I just found a video with further ideas for how to encourage them to sing. So I'm just going to share that in the chat here, and I suggest you save the link for later, okay? So you can go and watch it so you don't miss out on Rosa and Bells in the Steeple. Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sharon.
So, in terms of resources, what do I have? So I have this lovely floor stave, which I do not know. Someone asked me quite recently, do you know where I can get this? And of course I got it from Simpson Sounds back in the day when they, the wonderful Peter, produced this. Certainly, if anyone knows, please put into the chat. If you
can't,
can.
you can't.
No,
it's not. We need somebody else to take on
there's
the
an
production
opportunity
of
for
it.
someone.
Yeah.
I'm also using little Play-Doh balls, and then of course I have these little hand bells. You do get bells where you can shake them and ring, but I like these. You can set them on a surface and you're just doing this. Of course, I needed, because we were singing at pitch, and obviously if you're notating something, I will say it's always important that you're actually doing it at pitch as well and singing that note. So what we then did was I used a cocktail stick, and that was literally me going from using FSC, realizing that's not going to work. What have I got? So being resourceful and pulling out things from your kitchen, from your office, is always, it's not expensive to equip your studio.
And what I love is this multi-sensory approach, so that we're away from the piano, away from the temptation. Don't you find all they want to do if you sit at the piano is play the piano? So we've come away, it's on the floor, it's very tactile notation, because this is the thing, and I do say this in the Unlocking Notation course actually, that it can be, notation is abstract, yeah? And so this is bringing it to life, bringing it into a different place where they have to imagine it in their head. Right, sorry Sharon, just wanted to
That's
get
quite
enthusiastic.
Okay. The other thing I will say, so I'm just going to sing because this is the second phrase of the song, which... This is a holiday, ding, ding, dong, ding. Wonder if you can just for a moment, I'm going to hum it, and I wonder if you can just imagine, okay, starting in middle C, and imagine as I hum it, popping up on the stave. You'll obviously recognize what we have is just a moving triad shape, but it's the importance of children manipulating that. So let's remember Rosa has gone from singing the song to humming it. Again, we've done a little bit of work analyzing what's happening, recognizing shapes and patterns, playing it by ear on the bells. And now she's at the point where she is notating it using these little Play-Doh plasticine balls on the floor stave.
I don't know whether there should be sound, but we can't hear any.
Can you play what
There we
on the
go.
bell, what you have written? You got the last note? Yeah, you're perfectly right. You played it perfectly. But what I mean is, do you have it written on the stave as a little ball? And what else are you going to need to go and get? You know, the cocktail stick. So you go and help yourself to the cocktail stick. And then put the last note and then play it one more time. Amazing. Okay. Yeah, and can you play that one more time for me? And sing. And now can you go to the piano and can you play that? Can you start on a middle? So what was interesting was we did a mixture. We had been playing it on FAC as well. So she'd gone and to do the FAC. We were doing it on an F. Can you do it on a middle C? Perfect. Can you play it the whole way through from the very beginning? From the bells in the steeple, how loudly they ring, and then go and finish it off. Amazing. Just before you hop up, can you now play it beginning on the F the whole way through? What are your three notes that you... Okay, so I'm just going to stop it there. And so you can see how you can then shift and you can move. But again, using bells, using the piano, using floor stave. Obviously there was memory work going on in there as well. You know, other challenges, you know, what would happen if you inverted the song instead of do, mi, sol, do, dum, bum, 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 bum. So there's lots of things that you can do and then getting them to relate that. But again, it's relating the real sound and developing it. The other thing we have been working at, and the reason song was chosen, was just reinforcing thirds. Because
So I think we should talk a bit about patterns, Sharon, because we haven't really mentioned the importance of patterns yet. So what you were doing there was working on one of the patterns, weren't you? Which is the triad, basically, which is the thirds.
Yes.
And our brain is wired for patterns. In fact, I recently picked up this book. I was telling everybody the other day, you know, I went into a bookshop and said, I'm simply not going to be buying a book today in here. And then I ended up with this, which is The Science of How the Arts Transform Our Lives. I just want to read you a quick quote, published this year. From an evolutionary perspective, noticing and being able to rely on patterns in our environment is a fundamental survival skill for all species. And our brain loves patterns and it looks for patterns automatically. We don't have to teach it to look for patterns, it will do it. Hence, when we teach notation, we teach patterns rather than teaching individual notes. So in rhythm, what does that mean? It means we teach 4-beat patterns such as off I go, ta, ta, pet, pet, ta, yeah, crotchet, crotchet, quaver, quaver, crotchet, in other words. What I don't teach is this is a crotchet and it's worth 1 beat. That's not the starting point. The starting point is copy me and off I go. ta, 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 and they copy back. Yeah, so that's it with rhythm. With pitch, both Sharon and I use solfa. Yeah, we're both trained Kadai teachers, and you've heard Sharon do it there. And we use it because it gives that structure, that systematic approach of do, mi, sol, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, or do, re, mi, re, do. There are those patterns, and we are patterning our responses in our students. They get the patterns in their body. They we might even do a little bit of body solfa in a moment. But we teach them through patterns, and then, like you've just seen with Sharon, you relate it back to the stave. So there, Rosa already has an understanding of that triad pattern. Do, mi, sol. Sharon, do you ever get her? Or would the next stage be for her to sing the letter names to go along with the notes that she's playing on the piano?
Could be a mixture of things. So obviously solfa. Okay, so from the do, mi, so, do, mi, so, do, mi, so, do. And then of course it can be the letters again. I'm just, yeah, we're still in C, C, G, C, G, C, G, C. And of course, the moment that they're actually singing a letter, that's where you maybe want to just hit that note on the piano to make sure that when they're singing, it's not just any kind of note that you've picked out and pulled out. Go play a C, make sure when they're singing the letters, they're actually on pitch at that point. Obviously, if it's in solfa, you can be starting anywhere. It's just relative pitch.
Okay. And I'm going back to a question that Leah, or a point that Leah made earlier on about children with dyslexia really struggling to retain note recognition. And yes, for some students, it's definitely a much, much longer journey, and you have to help them in every single way you can. I think you'd find that quite a multi-sensory approach usually works particularly well with majority of these kinds of students. The other thing to do is to not only sing those patterns in solfa, to play them on the chime bars, to play them on the piano, but also we use something called alphabet strings. So there it is, and you get them to sing these back. I'm just going to get my chimes now. There's my... So C, E, G, they sing back. C, E, G, and G, G, E, C, G, E, C. And you make a little marching game out of it, and you do it for a minute, whatever patterns they're really doing. We've kind of moved over a little bit the idea of mnemonics. You mentioned it earlier, and I know there were quite a few comments coming in from people that they learnt through mnemonics, and indeed I learnt through mnemonics, and I taught using mnemonics for many, many years. But I did find that quite a few of my students never really mastered notation when I was using that approach. Yeah. What are your thoughts about mnemonics, Sharon?
So I think mnemonics, there is that thing, that the one thing that I remember, because again, like you, Sally, that's how I started out teaching. It was the only way I knew how to teach pitch notation was through mnemonics. And, you know, every good boy deserves football. As someone has already mentioned, that was what I was used to. That was the way I was taught. And so that's how I taught by default. But the thing was, if they had, let's say, read a B and they were kind of going every good B, and then the next note was a D, and they suddenly go right to the start again the whole way up. So the higher the notes tend to be, the more it's kind of going up the rhymes. And you know, how many people have had mnemonics and they mess up from, you know, one clef to the other, and they, you know, there's 4 rhymes to get muddled up. And it's that thing that it's individual notes. And of course, what we're wanting students to develop is musical playing. And that happens when you have got a full continuous musical phrase and you're not just thinking it's it's more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, shall we have a quick look at that song we were going to do together, and then we can begin to close up. Maybe I'll see if I can share. Here we go. Yeah, those are the bits I didn't quite manage to share with you. So let's have a look at this one. And just have a look at this song. I'm sure you might guess from the illustrations what the song is. Have a look for the patterns. What patterns can you see? And maybe you can put it in the chat. Think about, there are the obvious patterns, pitch and rhythm. What about the structure of the song? Any patterns that you could see there? Okay, I'm just going to give myself an E. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. And if I was teaching this song, I might get a student to do a little clapping game. So could you all, no, you can't quite see, tap, clap, shoulder, head. Tap, clap, shoulder, head. Are you ready? Off I go. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Snow. Okay, so it's another thing you can do actually to distract them from the singing. Challenge them, engage them in something that's a little bit, because didn't you find when it got to the second bar, maybe that got a little bit harder, yeah, to keep going. And then I would break it up and I would teach it to them. But what patterns can you see here, Sharon?
Okay, so I can see a mixture of repeated note patterns.
Lovely.
I can see patterns going down in steps. And one thing I might get a student to do, and I'm just throwing out another tip, when you get something like this laminated, ideally put it onto, get it onto a slightly bigger, bigger than A4, and give them a marker pen and get them to draw around patterns that are, for example, descending in steps.
And something I might do is ask them to colour in or circle all the landmark base C notes. So how many landmark base C notes? Because rather than using mnemonics, we use patterns, but we use what are called landmark notes, and our students read the patterns from the landmark notes. So Rosa, I think, had learnt middle C as a landmark note, had she? And F, was that a landmark note as well for her, Sharon?
I think G was kind of, in terms
G.
of
Yeah,
the G,
yeah.
she'd been creating with Play-Doh. Pipe cleaners is another nice thing, getting them to, or those kind of strawberry laces, they can create their own G clef. And again, I do tend to, certainly in those early stages, call it a G clef, because then it's that thing of, on the second line, it's a G.
Yeah. So yes, you can get them to sort of, without them sitting there having to work out from, every single note. They hear the song, they sing the song, they solfa the song, they sing the letter names, they find some landmark notes, they circle them, they spot all the patterns, pitch patterns, but we've also got rhythm patterns. This, for example, is a very useful song for them to recognise that those 4 are the same as those 2 in terms of they are TTs. So you've got 4 TTs holding hands together, or just 2 of them holding hands together. It's these little assumptions that we make. Of course they'll know that. of course, they won't necessarily. You know, I've met many adults who say, so why are those four, what are those four that are being together? You know, they're quite used to twos. So there are, I'm just going to stop my share and come on out, because I know we're just about coming to the end of it. Rose is asking, would we introduce the SKIPS alphabet to your students at all? Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, Rosie. Yeah, it completely depends on the student, and it completely depends on those alphabet strings and how systematic I've managed to be with them. Yeah, and persistent. I don't. Sharon, have you got a?
Yeah, just kind of picking up on a point that I may have touched on, but not kind of fully. Again, there is a time later down the line of a student's learning where you will want them to recognize notes, as in letter names. Going back to just the Mary Had a Little Lamb, okay, if they're knowing that on the second space is bass C, and if they know that and they understand skips and steps, they will be able to work out that a C is on the second space. So in the third space where I'm starting there is going to be an E. After that, they're not having to go E, D, C, D. They follow the shape. So they're starting on an E and they're going down a step and down a step and following the patterns. So talking about those steps, skips, and repeated notes as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I know we've touched on lots and lots of ideas really in this webinar, and I hope you can see that both Sharon and I are really very keen on helping students to unlock notation. And I think as teachers we have a big role to play. There isn't one way that we help our students to unlock notation, but there are a set of principles, and we've touched on many of those today, such as singing, such as pattern reading, such as being persistent and consistent. And if you have those principles in mind and go away and examine the way you currently teach notation, you will find ways forward for your students that will really help them to connect that, what they hear, with what they play and with what they see. Okay, and we know that predominantly we tend to start with the seeing rather than with the hearing, and really all those ideas we expand far more in our unlocking notation course. And these are some of the tools that we help you develop. We've just touched on them today, but some of the tools that we help you to develop so you can be a really persistent, consistent and outstanding teacher, basically, so that you will have solutions for most of your students. We haven't even talked about repertoire, have we, Sharon?
No.
And this is the need to keep the repertoire coming. Keep the repertoire coming. Don't get stuck. Beginners don't need to play the same piece for a month. They need to play 5 pieces in a month, 6 pieces in a month, and then they need to move on to the next piece. And the same with elementary, and the same with, keep learning the repertoire. So we're sending this to everybody, aren't we, Sharon?
Yes, right? We are indeed.
Yeah. And is it we, you know, part of this is we have an unlocking notation. Here we go. I've taught this for so many years, and I was so excited last year to pull this all into one place. I have put my heart into it because I just think it is so important. If we can unlock notation for our students, they will thrive musically. And it's available, it's there. I'd love you to go and, you know, have a look at it, basically. Sharon?
I have just put the link into the comments. And obviously after we have wrapped up the recording, we'll be getting it up there and sending it out as a replay video to everyone who has registered. So we'll be adding this particular PDF as well.
Should we just give them a little glimpse of it? Yeah, so
Absolutely.
If you did enroll, yeah, then it's a 4-module course with workbooks. So you get about 4 or 5 videos in each module. This is all about creating the right conditions, which is kind of what we've been looking at. Short video for each one, a workbook to help you, and old Mr. Woodpecker. Oh, we didn't do him today. And then we're looking at the key principles for teaching rhythm reading. So we're looking at those principles that get introduced in module 1. We're looking at how to break it down and how to really be successful at this. You've got flashcards, you've got the workbook, you've got heartbeats as well. Oh, and you've got a rhythm clock. We could have done the rhythm clock today. Anyhow, another time. Module 3 then moves to pitch, teaching pitch reading, and goes through those same principles again. And again, you've got a workbook. Module 4, now this is where we get into going beyond that initial learning period. It's where we look at troubleshooting things that might happen, what happens with transfer students, how you need to take the long view. You really, really do when you're teaching notation. And you've got all the videos and you've got the workbook there. So they're all little bite-sized videos, except I think one of them is a bit longer, but we give you lots and lots of ideas, lots and lots of suggestions. I would suggest you take one module at a time, digest it, go and try it out in your studio, and then come back and do the next module. So let me just stop my share. Oh, there we go. I get very excited about it.
It's an amazing course. What it really does is just breaks down these elements that we've been talking about, and of course, it's interesting. I know Jenny is saying, I learned to read music very quickly, so don't have memories of how I accomplished it. And sometimes then that can really be quite difficult when we're going to teach it, because you forget the possibilities for confusion. I mean, sometimes we'll kind of wrap with this, but if you've ever, Sally was talking about how easy it is for students to get that glazed look. And you're kind of going, what did I just say or do? They're not with me at all, I don't understand. But if you've ever asked them to play a high note on the piano, and they've maybe reached down and played one of the black notes in the lower register, you're kind of thinking, okay, play me another, and they kind of keep playing the black keys. Well, it's because high is like physically higher up. Yeah, okay. So like pictures, there's one that's higher than the other in the background here. And of course, that's how they kind of spatially see it. They do not think of things getting higher going to the right and getting lower going to the left. And I remember when I was in my early 20s teaching, realizing from, again, something someone had said and going, of course. We always kind of think, we know the high notes where they are. But when a student gives us a response, and it's I think, important that we don't think, that's the wrong answer. It's like, why are they thinking like that? And yes. Asking them questions and finding.
And that's another whole topic, isn't it? But yeah, just remain open, ask them questions to try and understand their thinking. Yeah. I love that. Higher black. Yes. Very good. Well, thank you to everybody who's come along today, and thank you for watching it on Catch Up. We'll be sending out the replay, I think, and we wish you all the best with unlocking notation and giving your students, many, many years of enjoyable music making, because they've got it in their head.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.